Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, March 15th, 2022 regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. It's 6:30, and we are going to say the pledge if you'd like to join us.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, roll call, Randy, when you get set.
Okay, trustee LaRue,
Is here?
trustee Winslow,
Present.
trustee Everson,
Here.
trustee Marks,
Person.
treasurer Johnson,
Here.
clerk Rattari is here, and supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is manager Kangas, our attorney Roger Zappa, our fire chief Dan Shanahan is here, and committee members, I think Bill Geller is here from the DDA, and Randy Gerard is here from events committee.
Great, thank you. Does anybody want to address the board before we get started with the meeting? Okay, thanks, Carol.
Hello, I'm Carol Fauscher. I live at 916 High Street in Marquette. I'm the administrator of the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority. We're on your agenda tonight. So while I was here, I thought I'd just give you a quick synopsis of how we're using the taxpayer money that we collect from 8 municipalities this year. So, big year for us because we have a millage vote coming up in August for another 6 years. It's at what, 0.1970. Hopefully that that goes to your taxpayers to vote on. The last time it was probably 60% or more than 60% said yes to this. We also have to do a new recreation plan to kind of give us a 5-year what we're going to do in the next 5 years. So we're going to be working on that this year. We're finishing up the Negaunee Township Trailhead project at the corner of 492 and M35. It will have a vault toilet. It will have paved parking, signage, bike racks, all the things you'd want at a trailhead. So that will be finished. We have a big asphalt repair project. We have about 1,200 linear feet of asphalt between Ishpeming and Negaunee that is root damaged. It's just the roots coming up and popping up, and we just need to get that fixed all in one shot. So we put that out for bids last week, or this week. Bids are due on April 22nd. So that will be going on this year. We tried to get the acquisition grant for the 176 acres here in Marquette Township and Negaunee Township. It's the Koski property. We did not get that grant this year. We are reapplying, and we can reapply with the same information as we had last year, so I don't need a new letter from you. I have one from last year, but we kind of reimagine the grant a little way so that hopefully we can get it this year. I talked to the owners of the property. They really, really are looking forward to having us purchase their property. And we would build almost 20 miles of single track trails in that 176 acres of land and open up the Bishop Creek for fishing. It's a beautiful piece of property, so knock on wood. We are also putting in a grant this year for a 5-mile extension of our trail to Lake and Inland. We had a lot of people ask us to go out there. A metal sculpture park should be the destination for the Iron Ore Heritage Trail. So we are going forward with that. We have public hearings coming up on March 23rd at the Ishpeming Senior Center. If anybody out there wants to write us letters of support on either of those grants, we would love that. We have ORV maintenance going on this year. We were successful in getting a grant last year for Negaunee Boardwalk. So we'll put in a boardwalk into the wetlands. Anyway, we have that going on. We're doing the engineering for that right now. We just signed a lease with the city of Negaunee. They're going to lease some land for us and put a campground. Their plans are to put a campground right next to our trail in the city of Negaunee. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're going to do this year. So, and hopefully the people will feel like we're a good investment of their monies, and we'll have 5 more years to get more stuff done for you guys.
Thanks for the update. Any comments? Sure, go ahead.
Could you give us a synopsis so we could put it like we did monthly on our water bill, or let the people know in the township?
Yes.
Yeah, like bullets even.
Yes.
Just bullets, yeah.
Okay, thanks, good idea. And if you have a template letter for the Lake and Inland land, we could do that too. Saves us, so that way we know what you'll need then. Good, thanks. Any other comments about Carol? Okay, thank you. All right, tonight's consent agenda consists of approval of regular meeting minutes of March 1st, 2022, and work session minutes of March 7th. Bills payable in the amount of $257,538.47. We have reports from the Sheriff's Department Activity Report of February, Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority draft minutes from February 16th, and their special meeting minutes of March 7th. No other correspondence, financial statement from February 20th, 22, and we have a budget amendment 2022-02, so we'll need a roll call on that.
Move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Or,
Okay, excuse me, all in favor?
oh, roll call.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was gonna say, if you wanna read that too.
Yeah, so the highlight of the budget amendment 2022-02 is really, it's the fire truck purchase is the big one, but authorization is requested to reclassify funding in the fire truck purchase in addition to an increase in ambulance revenue. Also requested is an allocation of the insurance reimbursement and offsetting expenditure repairs to the DPW 2014 truck. And roll call vote is trustee Marks.
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
trustee Winslow,
Yes.
trustee Everson,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Then I'd just like to make one move on the remainder of the agenda to take 8C and move it up to 8A.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Any other changes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, I'm not aware of any conflicts of interest with this agenda. So staff reports, let's start with fire department, please, Chief Dan.
Good evening. February's not a lot going on run-wise. We did, I will say though, we did some, our training can get a little mundane at times because we have to hit certain objectives every year, but we did get a chance to train with this Marquette City on self-rescue, SCBA, and that was, we had some fun with it and had some good training. Out of the ordinary a little bit, we did have a couple structure fires. They were both mutual aid. One was in Marquette City and one was in Forsyth Township. They ask us for our aerial every once in a while. We did hire 2 new members. One, Ryan Kovacs, he's a firefighter, EMR, and we have one returning member, Randy Makala, and he's a firefighter, and he was with us previously for approximately 17 years. And he's been gone about 4, and he just recently came back. And the AAA grant was applied for, and that was for extrication equipment. And that's a tough one to get. And that's all I have for my report, unless you have any questions.
Thank you.
So I see we're not doing the golf, they canceled the golf project, the putt-putt or whatever. I guess that doesn't fall directly to you, but that.
That would not. No, we just approved the site, we just looked at the site plan.
Yeah.
And then that's as far, I have not seen that it was canceled. No.
I was just looking at your inspections and your reviews.
Yeah, we did that the beginning of February, and then I'm not sure when that was canceled, or if that was turned.
In the last week, I think, or two.
Yeah, we hadn't heard. Yeah.
You want to talk about the pigs in heat, or?
Oh, pigs and heat,
kinda
well,
skip that?
I no, unfortunately, yeah, it didn't turn out as well as hoped, but obviously they raised a lot of money this year. They were really in dire straits, down to hundreds of dollars left, And I believe they collected a little over $17,000 total. The game could have gone a little better for the Heat, but it's a lot of fun.
Any other questions for the chief? Great, thanks, Dan.
Okay. I think I'm up. Public Works.
All right, Public Works, do we have Lenny? Or-
He's on vacation.
Okay, do you have anything to share, John, or are we good? Okay,
Nothing specific.
okay.
Well, his report is written and it is in the packets.
The attorney report then.
Well, since I reported to you a month ago, it's been a pretty busy month, but not in a disturbing sort of way. Spent a little bit of time interpreting Attorney General Nessel's opinion on Americans with Disabilities Act and Open Meetings Act overlay. Took a review of the Advanced Life Support Intercept Agreement with the ambulance between the township and the city, which you'll have later on the agenda tonight. We got some correspondence out to Lost Creek on the ongoing issue we've had on the payment in lieu of taxes. There was a case that came down from the Michigan Court of Appeals a little over a year ago now that was favorable to the position taken by municipal taxing entities such as Marquette Township, yet they haven't paid up the full differential owed on that payment in lieu of taxes. We've had some ongoing issues in trying to get some paperwork completed on the Center Street lift station. Turns out that if there was an easement for where the lift station has been for the last many years, nobody can find it. It was not recorded at the Register of Deeds office, but it turns out that it's just a tiny little parcel, and the owner of that is willing to convey it to the township rather than granting an easement, and we're in the process of finalizing what that wording looks like at this point and deciphering where the road really is in comparison to what the plat says and surveys say and so forth. But we're very close to that and should have that done this week. We're in the midst of ongoing negotiations in a tax tribunal appeal right now, and I will probably in the next week or so have something more to report on that one. I reviewed the Lions Field use agreement that's coming up later on your agenda, and I just got that last week, but I got some revisions that I'm recommending for that I forwarded this morning on that. I don't think there were any that were too startling or unexpected even in that, but we fine-tuned that agreement, took a close look at that since it will be in effect for a good number of years if it is approved. We, I guess since the last report, got the property maintenance code issue resolved, at least in the short term. June 1st will be the operative date on that in reevaluating what kind of progress happens on that. That's the Lake Enchantment Road issue that I've been reporting on pretty much monthly. We've had an ongoing series of questions regarding a planned unit development with possible 425 agreement, or, well, a 425 agreement is being discussed at this point between the city and Marquette Township on that one. And I've been monitoring a couple of legislative things that are both in the House and the Senate that could potentially affect a number of Marquette Township things, but possibly the marijuana ordinance may or may not affect that. We'll just have to keep an eye on that in terms of whether we need any follow-up. And that summarizes what I can think of. There are probably one or two others that I'm overlooking, but
It's pretty
it's been
good.
a busy month.
Quite a bit. Thank you. Okay, next up, we just have an introduction. If you want to come up to the podium, Bill, and just kind of say hi, and the board appointed you last time to be the Mark Tran representative on the Downtown Development Authority. So we kind of missed you, but it's always nice
Yeah,
to.
we schedule at once. I
Yeah,
still kind of get those straightened out. There's a lot of meetings for some reason, but I didn't think Delinn was that busy, but she was pretty busy. My name's Bill Geller. I'm the new executive director of Marktran. I took over for Delinn Klein about a month ago, roughly. I've been at Marktran for roughly 12 years. I've been operations manager. I was a finance officer, and now I've moved up to executive director. Delinn actually suggested I come on this board, or the committee, because she said it actually would benefit both of us, and I believe it will. I attended one meeting already, and I liked the energy and the positiveness that I could tell was coming from that meeting. It was nice. That's about all I have. Any questions? Bus related?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I was gonna say thank you for voting me in. It's a couple familiar faces here. I know Roger, I know Pete, so.
So at least you don't have to totally learn the job, I mean, because you've got 12 years history with the company, or the organization anyway. You're not totally coming in green.
No, I spent quite a bit of time with her before she retired, so we worked side by side for the last few months. But it's a lot of stuff. Every day something new. So it's nice. It's challenging.
I appreciate you taking the time and so we could put the name with the face.
That's nice. Yes, I say thank
We
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yep, thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
And before your next meeting, we will have to swear you in. Because the DDA is one of those authorities that need a oath, so we will do that for you.
Yeah, just shoot me an email. Does it have to be here?
It could be any time. I can have my assistant do it too, so. I know you're not far away, so.
And I think that's April, John, right? Is our next meeting? I don't remember the date, but so
13th?
next
That's the regular quarterly meeting, so
we could
that
do it
sounds
before
right.
that.
Yeah, well, we can do it. I'll get the paperwork and I'll do it before that meeting for you. Okay.
Schedule a bus ride over.
Okay, anything on community linkage? Anybody hearing from the community about anything? I didn't have anything to share, I didn't have time to put things together. Did you have something?
Yeah, I had a comment the other day from a young fella that lives on Fair Avenue and that. And he says in the morning when he tries to go to work, it's between 7 and 8 in the morning, the traffic on Fair Avenue is unbelievable, the speed and that. He says, I have a good idea, it's all going up to the alternate school and that. He says, they're going up that road, they're not slowing down for anything. He says, it's difficult even to get out on the Fair Avenue, that road in the morning, so. I said, I'd bring it up at this point, thanks.
It's absolutely true.
Maybe we should have our township police do a little sitting there and write a few tickets.
I said that to try and push it that way.
Uh-huh. Well, they're supposed to be attending a couple of our meetings, but haven't seen them much.
The second meeting was the one they were coming to.
But it's harder to get on get on Wright Street anywhere, in the morning, before 8 o'clock, after 5, it's hard.
I'm just relaying what he told me.
Yeah.
and that, too, so.
Okay. Let's see if we can, I'll make a note about the sheriff.
Should we maybe talk to the principal at that school and give him a heads up, to give the students a heads up?
Well, we don't know for sure that that's who it is either. We don't want to start.
But you can address it differently than saying they're speeding. You can just address that we have some concerns about the speed on the road. It's a safety issue. Have we done that ever?
Start with the deputies maybe and see what they know. There's a lot of people going to work, coming out
It's
of
not
Trowbridge,
always a school.
coming to the
Right,
city.
and you know, the deputies are punishment. Why don't we start with something that is positive? And maybe the principal will tell you that that's the wrong place, but it's just an idea.
Okay.
Nobody likes to get a ticket, nobody. Right?
Right. Okay, consider ALS paramedic intercept agreement with the city of Marquette. Mr. Dan, yep.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody had a chance to read it, but it's something we've discussed with the city for quite a few years, and our billing company, MHR, has suggested we do this for a couple of years, and finally we got together and I believe we've worked out an agreement, and it's a win-win for both the city and the township. It's sort of this, almost the exact same agreement that we do have with UPHS Marquette, and it's a win-win. And Attorney Zappa has reviewed it, I know. I think we have his blessings.
So how's the
yeah.
timing go? Who decides, I suppose dispatch decides whether they
No,
call
how
us?
that works is, we're a BLS unit.
Right.
So what'll happen, the only way they would come here into the township was if requested and there was no other ALS unit available, then we would call for Marquette City, which does happen. Right now, they're just doing it, you know, because we have a mutual aid agreement. Now they're asking, and it's a win-win, so it doesn't, they will now get paid a fee for coming into the township and assisting us on an ALS call only.
Because some of the calls, the dispatch knows, they can tell, you know, if it's a heart attack or
Oh,
something.
right.
They'll know
There's
right away
auto.
we need ALS.
Yeah, very good, yep. There's a list, and certain key words, difficulty breathing, ALS call. So, and if there's no ALS ambulances available, the city will come. And then we do the opposite for them. They're ALS, but they don't transport, and if there's no ambulances available, we go into the city. And we both will bill.
Not necessarily them first, then, it could be the hospital first. Or second, how do they decide?
The city would go just 101 Main Street, we got a call for difficulty breathing. Marquette City Fire would be dispatched, and there's no available ambulances, they would page us. Then we would go, and then we would transport with the ALS Marquette City Fire Department.
Okay. Same thing in reverse then?
Same thing in reverse.
The call is here?
Yep, and if there's no other ALS ambulance or unit available, Marquette City would come here. And then we bill at a higher rate, and then it's a win-win for both the township and the city.
So I have a question. So do they go on the rig? Does the city?
Oh, definitely,
So,
yes.
so they don't have a rig, just so people are clear about that?
Yep.
The city of Marquette does not have a rig,
They don't have an ambulance.
right? Well, okay, a rig and ambulance.
Define a rig.
Yep.
I get it, yeah.
Yep, mhm. So they don't have an ambulance.
Correct.
So they're going to go onto the ambulance that's there.
Correct, yes, especially,
One of their paramedics. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then they're gonna bill.
we will do the billing.
So you're gonna bill for the city.
Well, alls we're doing, which we're doing now with UPHS, we're billing at an ALS rate,
Uh-huh.
and then UPHS bills us. When we collect, we pay them.
Is that called intercept fees?
Yes, it is. Yep. And that's that, yes. Yep.
Okay.
No, we've been encouraged to do it by our biller for quite a few years, and we've been doing it with UPHS Marquette for quite a few years since we've been doing this, and it's worked out well. We seem to be going into the city more, the city's coming here more, and we just said, why not? It's a win-win.
You sound very comfortable.
Well, we've been doing it with UPHS with Marquette for 3 years now, and it's worked out pretty well.
Okay.
And until we get paid, nobody gets paid. And everybody understands that.
Andy?
I'll make a motion to approve the advanced life-saving or life support paramedic intercept agreement with Marquette City Fire Department and add on, authorize the fire chief and the supervisor to sign and authorize the document.
Support?
Okay.
Take your
Motion and
pick.
support. Any other questions, follow-up? Okay, and I do have the contract, so I can give it right back to you.
Okay, yeah.
In your mailbox.
All right, thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Now we will jump down to consider 10-year agreement with Marquette Little League, Superior Fast Pitch, and MSHS. All right.
So what you have in the packet is probably about 98% of what is final based on legal review. There were some minor tweaks that were made that we didn't receive any objections to from the proposed users. And I think it's a good agreement for the benefit of the township, especially the improvements at the field. I have heard some concern about the hours of use in the agreement for the length of time throughout the year. And I've had a little bit of time to think about it, but I don't have all the answers for you because I'd have to talk to each one of the 3 members of the user group, because they all practice and play at different times. So the high school will get out there as soon as the field is playable, right? They'll have practice right after school, and then they'll have games that are probably a little bit later in the day, but oftentimes late afternoon to early evening. When the high school season gets over, that's when Little League comes in. And then as Little League is finishing, that's when Superior Fast Pitch starts. So they all have different schedules, but that doesn't mean they'll be using the entire window of hours every day of the week. I can't tell you though what they are because the concern, I didn't hear it until today, so.
Questions? Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the concerns I have. I mean, they say April 1 to September 1, from 2 p.m. until 9 p.m. So that means that none of our township residents can use that field during those hours?
No,
Is that
that's not-
7 days a week?
That's not the intent.
Well, that's what's written though.
Okay, that means they have those hours available, but do you think any softball program will use every hour that they're given? They can't physically play that much softball.
I would hope not, but if that's what's written in there, then it's got to be made available to them
Okay.
for that amount of time.
I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is they're not proposing any more time than they've already been taking at the field. They're just doing it under one clean agreement instead of multiple agreements. In fact, one of the groups didn't have an agreement before because they didn't exist.
So that means that would be extra time then if they didn't exist, now they do.
Yeah, but they're also offering a lot more in exchange too, right? The
How
last
come-
agreement was 7,000 for 10 years. This is 10,000 in improvements over 10 years, plus additional joint efforts.
I don't have any problem with that, with everything that's gonna be done, the improvements to the field, but if some of our township residents wanna have a little pickup game, and I know that they're gonna have to check, because can they check then with who to find out, okay, this time is available, let's put them in that slot, but who do they check with?
With Andra at the front office, she'll have the schedules.
She will have, for that whole time period, she's gonna have the schedules?
Each organization, there's 3 organizations, right? There's the high school that starts in the spring, Little League that comes in as the high school season is finishing, and as Little League finishes in July, Superior Fast Pitch starts. They'll all have different times. So, if you don't want to agree to this without having their schedules or approximate schedules, that's fine. Can you agree on the terms that are presented otherwise? That's what we need to know, because it's supposed to be effective April 1 of this year. You won't meet again before April 1.
Well, I just don't feel I want to be totally locked into it if there isn't some way that we can't allow our residents to have a game. And
I guess my
maybe Roger
question is,
an
has that
answer.
been a problem in the past?
Not that I know, no.
They're not proposing to do anything different than what they've done in the past, beyond Superior Fast Pitch.
Yeah.
But Superior Fast Pitch isn't going to use every hour of every day. I can assure you of that. I just don't know what their schedule would be, so I can't tell you honestly what it would be. I don't want to even guess.
But then it's all our residents have to do is check with the front desk and find a time that they could go out there and use the field, and then set it up, and then they're locked into that time, correct?
Yeah, and generally, if nobody's there, they can play unless it looks like it's been prepped for a game. You know, the infield completely raked and chalked.
That's pretty obvious.
That would be adding additional cost to both the user group and the township to have to go out there and fix it again before the game. So that's kind of one of those exceptions where on game days, once the field is prepped, then the public shouldn't be on it.
Okay, let's see what Roger has to say.
Some of those were concerns I had and are in the revisions that you perhaps haven't seen yet. And the first change that I made is that I wasn't clear in the version that you have when it says dates of use April 1 to September 1, 2022 to 2031, if that meant it starts April 1st of 2021 and goes to September 1st of 2031. All winter, summer, 24/7, 365 per year. So I changed that so it now reads April 1 to September 1 for those years. Then also, there's a new paragraph 10 in the attachment 1 that you probably haven't had a chance to look at yet that says the field will be open and available for use by the township, its residents, and members of the public on dates and times when no user has any scheduled event. And remember that user is defined early on in the agreement as one of these three entities. So it's expressly providing now that when it isn't in use by one of those three entities, that the township, and by that I mean even the township for its community days use that field in those month periods, or might have other events or activities scheduled. Members of the public and so forth can use it if it's not in use. It also says that we as the township, are reserving the right to charge for that rental fees if somebody wants to rent it for a day for a family reunion or something along those lines. I don't know that that ever comes up or very often comes up, but at least it's indicating that if it does, then we are reserving the right to retain all of those fees and apply it toward the maintenance of the facility. And then it also inserts another provision that the PA stand and the concession stand will not be open to the public because, well, for obvious reasons, there are the potential for damage and so forth. But the field itself, it can't be more specific than that really until we know the schedule, but it is now going to expressly state what had been maybe inferred in the past. I didn't see any inference of that myself, but that the township, its residents, and the members of the public can use it when it's not in use by one of the users.
So
I like that paragraph in there, yes. That clarifies it quite a bit.
Can we post, once we get the schedule, can we post it at the field somehow? Put it in a Ziploc or,
Put a board down
laminated
there.
or?
Put it behind
board down
plastic
there.
and it'll
Yeah,
work out.
something, so everybody knows. Or even just a sign that said, field ready for a game or something, that people know if, because it's chalked, it's not chalked for the public to use, it's for a game.
We can actually probably put the field usage on our website calendar, or make a calendar for that. And then residents can, of course, we'll put a link on it and if they want to, but then you can print it out, put it at the field also.
Yeah,
It's not
because
that
we
bad.
don't want to be calling Andrea to do that. And the other thing is, she's not there at 6 at night. And,
Something needs to be at the field.
yeah.
Okay. So do we get the schedule then, John, by the 1st, after the 1st? Or when does that happen?
Well, it's 3 different seasons, right? So the summer schedule probably isn't done yet. I would guess the high school schedule is. Little League schedule is probably pretty close. I can certainly ask them for it, and if you don't want to take action tonight, I'm guessing there's not going to be any action on that field for a little bit, but I also know they want to scrape out the top 1.5 inches of that infield and bring in that Wapaka ball field dirt yet this spring, like as soon as possible. So I think it's important that we get this done as quickly as we
What they're
can.
doing, sure.
If you want to wait until the first meeting in April and we have that conversation with 3 organizations regarding their schedule, they might have very specific windows that are easily repeatable for the public to know, oh, they're not going to be here until 6 o'clock this time of year. We can get out there before dinner or whatever.
Never play on Wednesday nights or something specific.
Right. And in the spring, if the high school team is done by 5 o'clock every day, we've got plenty of daylight still, so.
That's all I'm looking for, is some guidance that shows that it's not being used for all of those hours between those dates.
Yeah, the challenge with lumping 3 groups into one user group is they all have a different time of day, right? The older they get, the later they play. High schoolers play right after school, adults play in the evening after work. So I'm sure we can get something published, shared, posted, so that the public knows.
Well, if we haven't had problems in the past, I don't foresee there being any problems in the future, but that just kind of jumped out at me with that April 1 to September 1. Geez, when can
Yeah.
other people use it?
I don't disagree with that concern one bit. I think we have 3 groups that are very well intentioned. The difficulty in writing an agreement is you can't cover every scenario without creating a 50-page document, so.
So-
Did you have a question? You
I
had
had
your hand
a
up?
question. Who's gonna have our preference? Example, August 5th, 6th, and 7th, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have community days. And if they have a game and we got to schedule a tournament, who's gonna have preference?
They've actually offered to help us with the tournament.
Good. Secondly, 10 years, could you have a 5 and a 5? Evaluated after 5 years. We've done it for many contracts with different companies and that. Different.
We could do that, but their commitment financially is gonna change and they won't be able to accomplish the big expenditures. 'Cause that batting cage is a big chunk of that
Oh, I know that.
10,000.
What's our way out?
Yeah,
Say if
yeah.
something's not working, how do we take care of that?
Is there not a buyout clause at the end that, if they choose to leave or we choose to leave?
Do we just pay them back the difference or something like that, or, whatever?
I don't believe we have anything specific about that, because I never assumed that would be an issue. It hasn't been in the past. In fact, they've contributed more than they promised to in their last agreement. The last agreement, you may recall, was 7,000. They claimed that it was probably closer to 10. So,
Just a thought.
It's always good to have a way out if
and
things
once
don't
they
work
invest
out.
in the facility, they don't want to leave. I can tell you that.
But that doesn't mean we don't want them to leave, not that we do, but do you know if you don't have a way out, you're stuck?
I don't think, if Roger didn't pick up on that, and he usually does.
I'm just the scrivener.
Okay.
So if you want something like that in there, I can put something like that in there.
Have you ever done anything like that, Roger?
Oh, absolutely. I can give you an
All the time.
example of a contract in which if improvements were made that cost $10,000 and the contract was terminated at the end of 2 years instead of 10 years, and I'm making these numbers up to kind of fit this scenario, then the owner would have to repay 80% of the improvements. If it happens after 4 years, they'd have to pay 60%. If it happened after 6 years, they'd have to pay 40%. It would be a diminishing, and that's just an example. Your imagination is the limit on what we could come
Yeah,
up
but-
with on things. Nobody,
But the person that would be paying is us.
that's
Exactly.
correct.
So
That's
why
correct.
would, so why would we wanna?
Well, because you got a
Well,
problem with
you
your
don't know.
residents, that's why.
Maybe they didn't fulfill their obligation.
Well, that would be
Maybe they
different.
would
Well-
choose to leave.
If there's a breach of the contract,
That's different.
then you can
Yeah, that's
You
different.
can always threaten to sue them and carry
Oh.
through if it comes to that.
I just think we're this is way too
Because
overthought.
that's what'll end up
Yeah, 'cause
happening
it's
anyway if you kick them off
It's
prematurely.
way too overthought.
My opinion is this agreement is a lot tighter than their prior agreement.
True.
Because we have new requirements in it that are necessary because of the situation.
I don't think we're gonna have a problem, I mean, just,
My concern was, whoops. My concern was the time. I agree with Dan. I think there's no time for residents the way it's written. But John
We
assured
don't
me
have
that
schedule
isn't
either.
correct, but
Well, in the agreement that's revised, there is a provision for that.
and we haven't seen that agreement.
That's correct, because it was just,
you have
we
to
got
wait
it
till next
today.
meeting.
Correct.
If you want to take no action tonight, I can reach out to the three groups, find out what their typical schedule would look like to help give you a better idea of whether or not it's acceptable such that the field can still be used by the public. Certainly, if they're going to lock it down from 2 PM to 10 PM every day from April 1 to September 1, I don't think I would support that either. It's just not the intention of a public ball field in the middle of our most dense population in the township, so.
I think we need to look at and get the understanding of the timeframes that we're talking about. So, and if you say it doesn't make any, we could hold off until the next meeting, I think that would be the way to go at this point in time. And I think with what Roger read us already with the updated one, because it's not what we have here. So by having that and looking at the times and having it ready for the next meeting, we should be able to move forward.
Even if it's not the quote official schedule, give us an idea of what
Generally,
a
yeah.
schedule looks like. That's all.
Mhm.
You know,
They give us hours, say from 2 o'clock, something like that.
Well,
We don't know that
we
yet.
no,
talk
it
in
doesn't,
general
it
terms.
doesn't have to be that specific.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
because it's not gonna be 7 days a
something
week
that's that
either.
specific, just a general idea of what it's been in the past years. Okay, on this day, we generally, would use it this many hours. Just to give us a ballpark, no pun intended, but a ballpark idea of what.
well, if they're gonna play in the evening or afternoon, in the mornings they're open, we should have that on our schedule too, so people can see that it's gonna be open in the morning, stuff like that.
so we should be able to put this on the April 5th agenda, John, and get more
I
information.
think that's plenty of time.
Okay,
If, for some reason, the weather makes things more urgent, I'll reach out to see if you're willing to meet in a special session.
Sure, we can have a special meeting.
To keep things moving.
You say the snow's gonna be gone by then?
I'm not expecting it to, but it is warming up, right? So you never know. If they get real anxious to start stripping that dirt out of there, they can't do it before the frost laws are off though, so.
okay.
That's gonna be a little bit late this year, I think.
John, did you have something?
Yeah, I think, what we've really arrived at is, it is extremely difficult for our leadership to craft something that's gonna satisfy everybody here. Some simple language that says, regardless of the scheduled times that are planned, if the field is not prepped for a coming game, the public is entitled to utilize the ball field. It's something simple like that would accommodate the questions that we've had. And I think that that's all that we need to do without wrestling with something that is going to be a nightmare to unravel.
Okay,
Thank you.
So next
One
agenda?
more question, Lynn.
Okay, Pete.
How long before the game do they prep the field?
Usually right before.
During the day,
Okay.
it really depends every day because of our employees' schedules, what else they have to get done that day. So, if there's a game at 3 o'clock, and the only time they have to drag the infield and chalk it is at 9, they're gonna do it at 9. If they have time to do it right after lunch, they'll wait until as late as possible to get it done without being too late.
Okay, so that'll be on the next agenda, more information.
Should actually make a motion to do that.
I'll make that motion.
Action item, thank you.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. You wanna write first?
Okay, so Linda and Pete.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
No, you're saying no?
I'm saying no.
Okay.
Way overthought.
Only
my
if you,
opinion,
it's
just my
only if you were sitting in and wanting to play ball, Randy.
Peter, it hasn't been a problem before.
I know it.
So why are we even going
Well,
there?
because it's gonna be something different.
Not much,
A little different.
not
Not
much.
much, is that much, we might have a problem.
The difference is better than what we had, honestly, but
Yes.
I understand the concern.
Okay, consider Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority ballot resolution and language for August 2022 election.
Okay.
I already put this up.
Yeah, okay, so Carol's here. We have to, before we put anything on the ballot, it has to have a resolution and ballot language. So Iron Ore Heritage Trail is requesting for us to do that for the August election. So it has to be in by a date. I don't have the May, it's in a May, but yeah, but earlier the better, so you don't forget about it. And so here it is for the board's consideration to approve the resolution and ballot language for the August 22 election.
John?
We've had a very good report from the authority leadership. I move to approve the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority ballot resolution and language for the August 2022 election.
Support.
Okay, questions? Anything for Carol maybe that she needs to clarify or anything else?
Pretty standard, it's a renewal, so, for 6 years.
This is a resolution, so it's
Roll
all
call.
roll call.
It is. And just to make sure, this, at the end of the 6 years, it lines up again with a regular election, right? Yes. We don't want to have a special election that you have to pay for.
I don't plan on being
Well, whoever's in your seat at that time. I just don't want an organization to approve something and they end up have to pay for a special election. That's just not, it's not very good. Okay, so roll call vote is trustee Marks,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
trustee LaRue,
Yes.
trustee Winslow,
Yes.
trustee Everson.
Yes.
Clerk retires, yes, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. So I'll to the county clerk. Okay. I'll send it and I'll carbon copy you.
Okay. Consider events committee plan and budget for township-sponsored events for 2022. Let's see. We did get, we remember that we talked about this last week, and we were told that we'd get a proposal for 2022, which we did get. We did a placeholder in the packet. It's not really what I was expecting to see, the way it's set up, but everybody's got it with them, right? John, do you want to address this, start, or what'd you want? Did you want to have Randy speak first, or questions?
I guess it's up to Randy. I did not make it to the planning meeting Monday morning where this was assembled, so I don't know a lot of the background of the things that changed or didn't change that I was expecting to change. Generally speaking, it does address the 3 events that you as a board wanted to be priority as far as your funding goes. It does not stay within the proposed expenditure of $12,500. It proposes to offset some expenses with revenues. Some revenues that I'm not sure are guaranteed. Maybe there's more known than I know, but I wasn't at the meeting on Monday.
Randy, do you have a statement maybe, or explanation, or however you wanna?
Well, not necessarily,
Present it, or-
well, the record, Randy Gerard, member of the Events Committee. Not necessarily a statement per se, but the board really didn't give any parameters. You just asked for the committee to come together, a budget, laying out what the anticipated expenses were. And I thought that what we did yesterday, and John was not able to be at the meeting, that came down with this breakout, basically gives you an indication of what it is that we anticipate doing. The flux, I'll say the flux in here that John mentioned basically is some of the folks that work with us to put on the project are willing to accept more than what the normal cost is. That's why we're saying at the very bottom end, the net to the township, you will not be charged more than $12,500. If there's anything over that, it'll be made up by those that are sponsoring. Now,
So the
you know,
board did this.
couple of things that we talked about, as you know, I was approached by folks that participate in the car show, for instance, and I said that, if you're concerned about the cost, we're certainly willing to pay an entry fee, for the cars, each car. So there are those kinds of additionals as well. But basically, the bottom line is that it would not go outside of your budget. You would only be responsible for $12,500 maximum.
So there was some discussion at our last meeting of the radio station, or Todd, or Media Brew, or whoever might want to take on.
Well, it's a
or
possibility.
suggest if they would take one or more, or all, or.
Yeah, that was Bill that was here, and Bill basically works with the radio station, and basically he indicated that if the board is in a position to not want to fund this, then possibly the station itself could take it over and run it. I know there was discussion about the community partnership being involved in the operation of it or sponsoring it, but I think the thing that you need to think about is that when you do pass these events off to somebody else besides the township, you lose control of it and you lose the benefit from it. It's no longer a township event.
So we did decide definitively by consensus, because it was a work session, that we do want to financially sponsor
The three.
events. Okay, that was the first thing, is that do we want to do this? Because some communities don't financially sponsor events. That was one of the first questions. So we agreed that that's, by consensus, we were okay with that. We also said that these are the 3 events that are important to us, that we feel like we should continue to fund and support, right? This is a board meeting, so that was a work session. I just want to confirm that nothing's changed. Okay? Go ahead, John.
I think when we either approve or disapprove what's before us, what we're doing is accepting it for the year 2022.
Correct.
That's all.
That's correct.
And so if that's all we're doing, and we say that in our motion, that doesn't commit us to any further events, and it doesn't give a license to anybody that we want to continue these beyond 2/22. That's all. I think we need to make sure of that. Once we do that, then the motion is in order, and we can be supportive of it, but for 2022.
Right, and
Because
trustee
some of the
Marks
dis-
is correct, that is our intent. This is not a blanket type of approval, this is for the 2022 events. I've heard you loud and clear, basically, about future years, and basically what the events committee will be doing is submitting to John, when he's putting his budgets together, what a request is, basically, that would be built into the budget and brought to the board, if the board wishes to do that. So, I mean, this is not a continuous, we're forever gonna have a car show, we're forever going to do whatever, within this type of a budget. It would be this is for 2022, and in fact, the dates that we're talking about for the June car show, that's always Father's Day weekend, and this year it would be June 18th. The Community Day is always the first Saturday in the first Friday, as Pete said, first Friday, Saturday, Sunday in August, which would be Saturday, the 6th, basically, would be the actual day, and then November, we do that opposite of your board schedule, so it would be the 15th. I'm sorry, the 22nd of November. So you meet the first and the 15th in November, so we would be between, the 22nd, which would be that week of Thanksgiving.
So we were made aware of some other spots, other events that were scheduled, I guess, and
Those were not necessarily events committee events. Those were events that were put together in conjunction with the management of the mall, with the intention of getting traffic in the mall. As I mentioned previously, the first year, the last year that I was here as manager, we did sponsor a couple of events in there, the Music on the Mall, that was discussed with the board at the time, in an effort to try and get some life back into the mall, because it was going dark, and we didn't want to have, in the center of our community, have that large empty building there. And then from there, like I said, last year, I'm not sure how that all took place, because it wasn't something that we worked on as an events committee.
And I don't think the board cared that the events happened, or, there's supposed to be one in March and one in April, but it wasn't anything, we wanted to make sure it wasn't gonna cut into our budget that we had already approved, because we didn't know anything about it.
Correct.
So I'm just kind of reiterating what happened last week, and make sure we're on the same page.
And realistically, the board's posture has been, these have been your core events, these three have been your core events, and, and I think in all honesty, the residents truly enjoy them. I mean, we have good turnout. The car show last year, we had, I think, 120 cars registered, and then probably another 20 to 30 came that didn't register. They just, later in the day, they just came in and parked the cars. So, I mean, it's a very popular event, and it's on the calendar for most of the car enthusiasts and the other car clubs in the area. We have people come from all over the place. These guys go to Sault Ste. Marie, they go to St. Ignace, they live for car shows.
Ernie?
When I got this, I started going through it. Maybe because I've been involved with putting on activities like this. The first thing I did, I have no way to compare this to prior. There's no comparisons at all. So I have no idea where you're at. So, and I started out looking through this. We actually said 12.5. I went all the way down, I said 16,975. That's $4,475 or $25 differential. They're making up by donations. To me, we're upfronting this money. So any money coming in comes back to the township.
It does.
It doesn't go back to the committee.
It does not. As I mentioned at the work session, the money goes to Lois, and Lois allocates it back to recreation.
Well, it can be no more than 12.5, so the 16,975 is, to me, is a number that can't be even talked about at this point in time, because the most you can go at 12.5. Then I started looking at each one of these things in that. First thing come up on the June car show, $190 for poster design. Design a poster. But then you look into it, okay, you get the design, you got the poster, what are you gonna do with them? There's nothing in here about mailing them, delivering them, or anything else. There's no distribution of them at all, nothing.
It's the exact same as we've done every year that we've had the car show.
But how do you get it out?
Members of the committee and members of the car shows distribute them.
Well, that should have been part of this as to how it's gonna be distributed. But there's nothing in any one of these things as to advertising in the Mining Journal, Marquette Monthly.
That was not requested for this meeting. You requested an overall budget for the meeting. If you want an extremely detailed program, we can do that for you.
when you put together an event and you're gonna go out and advertise it, you take care of all the advertising. And that's part of the committee's responsibility to look at all this stuff.
And it's all listed here.
It's all there.
It's all listed here.
Where are you gonna advertise?
The same
The only
place we
advertising you
advertise.
have is on the radio.
No, we hand deliver posters to various locations around the township. We hand deliver them to the groups that are involved, and then we publicize it on the radio. The Mining Journal picks it up, TV6 picks it up. I mean, if you want all of that detail, we can certainly provide that for you, but that's not
But
what
there's
you
no
asked for.
dollars associated with advertising and newspaper papers and all.
We don't
That's-
charge
No,
for gas,
those are-
Bernie.
those are public
We don't
service.
charge mileage for bringing out posters.
No, those are public service
I didn't either when
announcements.
I did all that.
Newspaper ad.
No.
What I'm saying is, I'm looking at some of these costs in that. I've been to a lot of car shows in my lifetime, because I go and enjoy looking
Mhm.
around. I'm looking back and I said, how many of them have stages there doing something? People come to look at the cars and talk to the guys that own them. That's what it is. They don't care about the stages and that. They could care less what's happening on the stages. Now, Roger may have, because he's brought things there, he may have a different idea. But my feeling is, I'm not going there to listen to someone on stage at a car show and that. So we go through that way and that. I can go down each one of them here. And on the August Community Days, what really jumped out at me real quick was the kids in flammable ones for family. That's fine, but there's a major liability there, because the only place you can put it is on the concrete. And to me, I want to get away from that. I don't want some kid over there bouncing around and all of a sudden jumping around and cracking his head on the concrete. We might as well be out of business at that point in time.
It's fully insured.
I don't care how insurance you have. I don't want it to happen in that.
The reason it was put there was to control the kids who were not running all over the field and to keep them away from the ball field while you're having an active tournament. There's more liability there than having them enclosed and supervised on the ice rink.
Maybe I just did it too many times in this other organizations that I get involved with.
Did anybody get hurt?
We never had those in that, because we knew the problems with the liabilities in that too.
Well, I've had it several times and I've never had anyone get hurt. We've had it on grass, and we've had it on concrete and blacktop.
Yeah, basically
Not
what
one
we have
person
is
ever
we have
got hurt.
obstacle course and we have slides.
And the secret of the whole thing, Ernie, is we have to give people a volunteer to help. Last year,
I
John and
know that for a
myself.
fact.
Yeah,
And also know, when you talk about the November Christmas tree lighting, there is not one thing in here about the Christmas tree. What are you gonna do about the Christmas tree? The last few years, we had to go out and find one, cut it down, transfer it over, rent the equipment to put the lights up and everything else. There's nothing in here for cost factors for that.
There is.
So how are you gonna do all that? So,
We do that. The trees are donated. We don't have to buy them. We go harvest them. Yes, we do. We've done that every year. And we put them up.
who does that?
The committee and along with township staff.
The staff is not involved with it anymore. That's why we put $12,500 in there. The staff is not involved with it anymore.
There's always been 12,500 and the staff has always been involved in it. If the board is taking a position of saying staff will not be involved in the projects, then take that action.
Okay, so what we need to know is how we're gonna move forward. That's the first thing.
I mean, if the board decides that you don't want to do these functions, let us know. I mean, we spend a lot of time, the volunteers spend a lot of time putting these together. I mean, if you want more detail, we can give you more detail, but a lot of the things that are being discussed really are not relevant to the budget discussion.
Pete, were you gonna say something?
no, I don't see the big problem with it. I mean, you can't put, advertising. The only thing you have to have in advertising is the cost of the posters. If there's no cost to
Right.
get delivering them or get them out there. The Mining Journal is free. I bring it down there, and they put it in there for us. That's no
Public
charge
service-
at all.
Public service announcements, same
Right.
thing on TV6.
And it's, we have volunteers. We need more volunteers. And if you don't understand it, maybe you should come and help volunteer a little bit of it in these different times. And you get to know how it's run, why it's done the way it is. Is there some problems? I don't know. I've never had one. And I've been doing it for several years now. And from Halloween to Easter to festivals and stuff like that. So I guess I don't worry as much because we try to take as much precaution to everything, you know, and I always try to have enough volunteers to help us. Last time it was John and myself, and I felt sorry for John because he was getting uptight over it because, you know, it is. You got to be there, and some kids get carried away. You just have to say, hey, that's it, or you're out of here. And the one thing I do like about the ice rink, the parents are sitting around the edges. They're not running around chasing the kids down because the kids take off. They're sitting there in their
Parents disappear
chairs.
though, Pete.
Pardon me?
Parents disappear, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's, yeah.
That's what happens, they think that you're babysitting their kids for them.
Yeah, but I mean, the majority of them are sitting right there. I can watch them around there. Yes, they might have to go get something to eat. Yes, they have to go to the bathroom, but overall, it's a pretty safe thing. And as long as we control the kids, if kids get a little rambunctious, and it's a game for kids. You know, kids sometimes have to let loose a little bit, but that's why we're there.
John, go ahead.
Whoops. A lot of the concerns that we're hearing aired tonight, I've said myself. And the biggest thing I need everyone to understand is last year was not a really good example for my first year involved in the events committee because a lot of things didn't go per plan. And that's where I think we need to rein things in. If we can't do it safely, we shouldn't do it, period. And Randy, I think you probably know what I'm referring to. I don't need to reiterate some of it here. But if a township or a tree is going to be harvested, we need to decide what township staff's involvement is going to be in it, whether or not a volunteer on the committee has a right to order them around, and whether or not our staff has the right to leave if it's an unsafe work environment. Because I don't believe we should put our staff in that position again. It's happened one too many times. We need to clean that up. I personally have concerns with the bounce houses on the concrete slab. No, a kid didn't fall and crack their head open, but how many does it take before it's too many? We need to think about these things. We need to air the concerns. We need to minimize the risk so that the insurance doesn't become the fallback and then we're paying higher rates forever. We need to do it safely, and that's, if I don't say that, I'm not doing my job.
So
Well,
we
and I
have-
think, and I believe we have done it safely, and I believe it's not the first, you hear it's not the first rodeo. Well, if this isn't the first rodeo, we've been doing these for 10 years or more. And if the board wants to make changes, if you don't want to use the ice rink, then we won't use the ice rink. But where else are we going to occupy kids? Around the fence at the ball field? I know you're talking about, I saw you're talking about doing the fast pitch softball. There's a liability, because that's a little league field. That is not a field that's designed for adults. So unless you're gonna fence the whole thing in, you're gonna be having softballs peppering the houses all around there. In fast pitch adult softball.
It's
So
not men's fast pitch.
Well, it doesn't matter. Fast pitch, high school level, they still punch them out of the park. When we have the tournaments at Lions Field, you hit it out of the park, you're out, done. So I mean, that restriction is there. You're not gonna have that when you've got teams playing against each other competitively. So there's liability. Pickleball being played on the tennis court, being played on the ice rink. Liability. Huge liability when you've got them running around the net, tripping and falling. Way more than you have the kids on the slide. So I mean, from that standpoint, that's why Power Plan added these 3 events to the coverage to provide protection should something happen. Now, we've never had an injury.
You've heard my concerns. It's up to you
Understand.
to do what you wish with
Oh, I
this.
understand, and this all rests with the board. If you want to change the way these are done, if you want to not have them anymore, if you want somebody else to do them, that's your decision. We're volunteers. That's all we are, is volunteers. We don't have any authority to grant anything, draft anything, that always went through the township manager.
So we have the proposal as it stands. Whether it needs more information or not, or you like it or you don't like it, this is what's in front of us. We've already budgeted the money. Regardless of whether we're paying $90 for posters or whatever it is this what you want to do right now? Or do we need to have another conversation? Do we want to micromanage it and get down to the details? Do we want to work on the car show and say the committee, because this is a not necessarily it's a board-sanctioned committee, but it doesn't have parameters, they don't have bylaws, there's no structure.
Right.
That's
Simply
my
ad-
argument.
simply ad hoc
Nothing
at this
against
point. Yeah, it's
the
just-
members, but we've got a decision. This is business, so we have to decide. Are we gonna deal with this tonight? Are we gonna put it off? Are we gonna make changes? What? Randy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think we're, again, overthinking this. We are not, we run on a modified policy governance. So we make the policies. We don't micromanage, okay? And I think we're getting away from that. So my feeling is that at the work session, we had consensus. We'd sponsor 3 events, $12,500, and the rest of it is kind of not our ball wax. We made the policy, and that's where we have to go. We have to stay with that. We make the policy, sponsor 3 events, $12,500. Manager understands that, it's clear.
Except that the budget we have, I don't know how to pay it when the invoices come in.
Again, we make the policy, $12,500. If an invoice comes over that, we don't pay it.
They don't get paid.
They don't get paid. I think the events committee is very well, they should be, because we had a long discussion on that. Anything over $12,500 is not authorized expenditures. And I believe too that any monies that come back for donations should come back into that account or recreation or whatever, but it shouldn't be above and beyond that.
No, and what you're seeing, it does, like Super One, when Super One cuts a check and presents it back to the township as, anything over their cost, they donate back to the township.
But
That goes directly into accounting, and that gets allocated to the appropriate accounts, basically in accounting. What you're seeing on this, the 16,975, much of that is absorbed by the people that are doing the work.
well, and maybe it was not correctly done.
Yeah, the donations really shouldn't be on here. That's
My opinion, the
part of
donation should not be in there, but that's just my opinion.
Well, and all we did with that, the reason we put that in there is to give you an idea, basically, of where some of the funding comes from, in terms of, on an average. Historically, that's where funding has come from. The car show proceeds, we always get a bunch of donations at the car show. People donate money
Yeah.
towards the next car show. And those all get accounted for, those all come through Lois, and they're all allocated back into the budget.
So, just to make it quite clear, the policy we're approving is we don't spend any more than $12,500, and I'm on record, any bills above and beyond that will not be paid. Goes back
By us.
by us. It will not be paid by the township. And it will not be paid by any donations received for those events, above and beyond that $12,500.
Nope.
So that's just quite clear. We don't have to micromanage it, but I'm supporting our manager because last year, and maybe that's not a good example because it was a different year last year, but we were above that, and there was bills that were paid that we didn't authorize. Well, the board wasn't aware of, so anyway, that's just my piece.
So based on this proposal, can we move forward? Is this
I guess
is
just
this
to
what we
clar-
want to do or not?
Just to clarify one last point, you're not allocating $12,500 up front, and John knows that when we do the car show, that's all that we're going to be doing is the car show, and the bills will be submitted for payment. Over the course of the entire year, there will not be an aggregate of more than $12,500.
That's kind of what I'm
I have no concerns with that.
John, had your hand up.
I tried to explain it earlier, but I don't think I communicated it, my feelings about it. I think all we're doing tonight to get through 2022 is to accept the events committee budget for the township-sponsored events. Just that, not their plan, because the plan is what starts, when you start to read their plan of how they're going to accommodate, it gets very awkward. And again, we get tied in knots, getting beyond just the job of setting policy. So I think that we should only, for today, to help the events committee.
Move it along.
I beg your pardon?
To help the events committee move it along.
That's right.
I didn't mean to be putting words in your mouth, I'm sorry.
And we all would agree, I think, that the events committee intent was honorable and is something that we really appreciate. But we need to get through this, and if we want to get into more detail, we can do it when we're budgeting and deciding about what sum should be allocated for the event. That's when we should be doing that. Not now, not tonight.
Bertie, you had your hand up first.
Going back to this list here, if you look right at the bottom in bold type, it says net from the township is 12.5. And you back up a little bit, it says 16,975, which means they're taking in that 4,470, 425 to bring that to 12.5. So that dollars coming in on donations go right to the township, period. So it's not a net at the bottom in that. So they're going to have to redo their cost factors here and that to come up with 12.5 and that. That's the only way they're going to do it.
Yeah, the individual totals are gonna have to change.
Yeah, and realistically, what that is that 16,975 is a maximum projection. That is, if all of these things happened, for instance, on the car show, John will get a more detailed budget for that car show, and instead of 2,350 for 280 spots, maybe we'll only do 200 spots. And that'll reduce that 16. That is if everything on this page occurs, the total incurred would be 16,975. Your portion of that 16,975 would be 12,500. The rest would be either absorbed by the people sponsoring the show by reducing their costs or whatever. The net to you is never going to be more than 12,500, and hopefully it will be less.
I still look at the Christmas tree. There's a major cost in that at some point in time. We have to worry about that end of it. So.
And I still think we should try to plant a permanent tree.
Yeah, somewhere.
That would be a one-time expense.
Right, and we've talked
Or
about
cut
that.
a much smaller tree.
Well, we've talked about it for years, and one of the things that was talked about, God, this is Tuesday, it was only yesterday, it seems a lot longer ago than that, but was, you've got the tree out here that is always lit, the one on the north side, but you've also got, on the south side, but you've also got 3 or 4 trees on the north side that don't get lit. So maybe we take some of the lights, from the big tree, put it on a smaller tree, have lights for here, to light it up. The problem that the township has, and I think I had a discussion with Trustee Winslow after the work session, is that you don't have anywhere that you own that you can put a tree. You don't have anywhere. You've got the well field, you've got this property, and you got Lions Field, but there's no parking at any of those. And you bring out several hundred people, that most of them drive to the event. So that's why the lot at the Westwood Mall was originally selected because you have a large space, a large gathering space, and you can give, the weather's bad, you can go inside the mall. We hope that that can continue, but you don't need a 30-foot tree.
Maybe we can
That
buy
was,
it.
we never had that
I think that's where
before.
part of our problem started from, was the too big of a tree.
Huge tree. And again, where that came from is, I don't think any of you know this, but where that came from is we had a resident, the first year, who really wanted to donate a tree in his parents' honor. So he had a tree in his yard. He said, "Can you take this tree and make it be the township Christmas tree?" Well, that's how it started. Then it was, Portobello had one that he wanted to donate, so on and so forth. It was just got wild.
Maybe we could buy an artificial tree. and just
No,
buy-
no, we're not going that route. I personally like the location, I personally like everything about it, we just went way too big on a tree.
Yeah.
Period. And that's all we really have to say is reduce the size of that. And what I'd like, we beat this thing up so much for so long. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the events committee plan and budget the township supported events for 2022 in the amount of $12,500, not to exceed $12,500. I think we're fortunate that we have volunteers on these committees that are willing to do a lot of this work. It brings in so many people into the community, and it's just such a festive event. Everybody that's there is always, they enjoy it, all of them. So,
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Do we want to have a discussion in the future about this year?
Yeah, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
That
About
motion
these
should pass.
individual, do we need to make changes? Do we need to talk about the bounce house? Do we need to talk about the tree? Do we just put this to the events committee and let them work with John? How do you want to handle this?
I
Because
would request that latter suggestion, and I will bring the concerns to you as necessary. I'm still trying to find out what the biggest tree spade is around here. That conversation got started late last year and we never finished it. Just because the guy I was working with happened to be trying to run a tree farm at Christmas time, so I just need to circle back with him and see what
Yeah.
he knows about size of tree spades to figure out the biggest tree that we could transplant. Once we know that, we know how much space we need, try to get with the mall, see if they're willing to give us some space to plant it, go from there.
Well, one other option that we've never really talked about is, do we, somebody mentioned an artificial tree. What would be so wrong with getting a 20 or 25-foot artificial tree and putting it on top of the mall? You got a 100-foot radio antenna there now. Why not put an artificial tree on top of the mall, on top of Kohl's, or on top of, somewhere on the mall, and light that? Call that your Christmas tree.
Why not?
Centralized, more visible. I don't know where you would put a real tree, a live tree. Where would you
The
put it?
fire department.
we'd have to look at some kind of easement or something by the mall. If somebody can give us, MDOT or somebody can give us whoever.
The MDOT won't be able to within the right of way because it's a crash hazard. That's why it was in the parking lot. But that's what makes it difficult is, we're right in the middle of a congested business district.
Bernie?
Clarification for myself on that. The 12.5, fine, but any dollars what is generated by those activities come back to the township.
Correct.
So
That's correct. It always does.
That way it's not inflating that 12.5 to any dollars.
No, not at all. And that always does. Any cash that comes in, whether it's from Super One or whether it's from donations at the car show or whatever, those are all kept separate and they're given to Lois. And then Lois, brings those in as revenue. The $16,950, the way that gets dealt with is somewhere in here, whether it's the advertising or whether it's, something else gets reduced. This is a gross figure.
but it's not gonna take away from what we've been spending in the past
No.
on these,
No, it's
I don't
like,
wanna borrow money from Peter to pay Paul for some other little,
no, it's like when,
Event.
at the work session, when the discussion came up about maybe the radio station taking it over. Basically, what he was saying is if we have to do it for 500 instead of 1,500, that's what we're gonna do. You're gonna get the same amount of spots, but we're gonna charge you less. The problem that he has, well, I'll tell you, the problem that he has in 2022 is you have elections this year. And you can't give somebody an advertising deal here without giving it to everybody else who wants to advertise for political purposes or whatever. So what they're saying is that they're gonna go forward and do that, and this is what the anticipated estimate is, but they'll charge us less. They're not gonna give us the discount. They'll just throw in some extra spots, basically, and not charge for them, is basically that's what they're saying. We'll absorb some of that cost as a contribution to the township.
So how do
Right,
we,
you know.
John, clarification for me, how do we voice our concerns, whether it's the bounce house or the tree, and how that's handled? I'm sure the board has opinions on what should be taken out, who we should advertise with or not. Does that,
No,
how
don't
do
get
we
into
do
it.
this?
Some of that stuff I think you need to air here in public now, because that's where I think a lot of the problems arise, from what I'm hearing from individuals up here. I'm okay with taking what they presented here and going forward with a not-to-exceed budget of 12.5, because I see things in here that I assume Great Lakes Radio is gonna donate. Randy
Correct.
didn't mention Great Lakes Radio specifically, that's Todd.
Yeah, that's
Todd
correct.
has not historically billed us for mobilization of his stage and demobilization. That's itemized in here. I'm guessing he's gonna cross those off as part of his donation.
That's what I was referring to.
So,
Great Lakes Radio and also the
To assume.
Media Brew.
right. But my point is, if the board wants us to advertise in additional or different ways than we currently are, that needs to be made clear.
Right.
I've heard the concern expressed, I don't know if it's an opinion of the entire board or not. If you want to go forward with a clean motion of 12.5, not to exceed 12.5 for 3 events, I can take what's here and figure it out with the events committee. If you don't want bounce houses, now's the time to say so, or we decide very soon before they have to be reserved.
True.
That's
And-
what I'm
and-
wondering,
and
is it has to be part of this
basically-
discussion, or do we wait until right before the event, or
We
what?
can't wait until before the
No, you
event.
gotta know now.
I
It's
do
gotta
need
be
to
reserved.
clarify, we are not talking about bounce houses. We do not do bounce houses because they are dangerous, and our insurance company said, don't do them. What we do is we do what's called the pirate ship, basically, which is flat. Kids just, there are inflatable obstacles in it that they go around. The other thing we do is a 30-foot slide, that double slide. That's what we do. Those are the two things that we do. We don't do bounce houses.
What did you have trouble with last year? Pete had
The
pretty much to do
inflatable
it
toys
himself.
is, I've been generically referring to them as bounce houses,
Yeah.
and obviously I should not.
Well, I think what happened last year is, we didn't have enough volunteers last year, is basically what happened. So it was, instead of, typically when you rent these inflatables, they bring staff to manage them, basically. Last year, they didn't have the staff because of the pandemic. So they had minimal people there, and we tried to cover with our own volunteers, and didn't have enough for everything that was going on. with the
One of them didn't have
game.
fun.
Say again?
One of the volunteers didn't have much fun.
Well, and you had to go play ball besides, right? So,
there's, I'm not gonna say this for everybody involved with the fire department, but if you're looking for people to help some of this stuff, there's a good pool of people that are generally willing to help with situations like this, that to my knowledge, have never been approached.
Not in that specific respect, no.
But I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, we do have the sheriff there, our sheriff's deputy, and we do have fully staffed fire truck and ambulance that are on scene in case something does occur, but also before we had staff on the weekends that gave us staff on, on that Saturday for response. But yeah, you're absolutely right, because they're there as a static display in uniform, ready to respond if they get a call, but they're free to do whatever they wish. And then, some of them have, I think a couple of them actually played in softball tournament last year, I think.
But even setup
Others.
things and other things, if you're just looking for
Yeah.
people to help.
Yeah.
I'm sure if that were, like I said, I cannot speak for everybody, but the good majority of people, they're good people, and they're always willing to help for something for the
Yeah, and I
township.
think the ones that are there truly enjoy being there, so. Those are all good comments, but the advertising basically is the poster, we do that, we distribute it, all those kinds of things. But again, don't get too hung up on that 16,975. That is, for budget purposes, that's a gross figure that includes the 12.5. And most of what's up here is flexible in terms of totaling that 16,975.
So do we have any more issues that we have to decide on with Community Day?
And I think, to make John more comfortable, we can break these out into more finite details that will come into an invoice type of an arrangement. But those are typically after the event. There's not a whole lot of expenditure up to the event other than the advertising. What usually happens is at the event, and then it's billed afterwards.
Community Days, anything? Yes, no? Okay, Christmas, we need to try to talk about the tree. Do we want to wait till later? We've got time on that one.
I think we could
No
take
rush
each
on
one
tree.
of these individually as they come, and if we have questions, we can give us time to think about them. And, okay, the car show is coming up, do we have any questions on that a couple weeks before? And the same with all of them.
I just said that, and they said, no, we need to decide now. So that's
How
what I'm
can
trying
we?
to
Who
lock
said,
this
who
down.
said we have to,
Pete and Linda.
we have to decide now on all
You have
three
to
of them?
decide,
No, on
no.
contracts.
No,
Oh, yeah, I'm not
No,
talking
that's
about the
what I said.
contracts.
Can we talk about these as they come up?
No.
Can we
No.
talk about
No, you can't.
community
because,
days maybe in
Contracts, you have
June?
to, bands,
Okay.
things like that, you have to get
That
that.
type of thing, yes. That's
So-
not what I meant.
We're not gonna make changes to these three events, is what I'm asking. We're okaying the budget, and however they decide to put the tree up or put the bouncy houses up, that's all up to them, right?
How about, if to simplify your life, how about if we do this? Prior to the June car show, you have the meeting before that June car show, the committee can come back and do a report to you saying, here's how we're setting it up, this is what we anticipate to happen. Same thing with the August Community Day, same thing with the November tree lighting. The board meeting prior to that, we can come back to you and say, here's what we've got, John can work with us on that. If that'll make you more comfortable, then at that point you can say, we don't want a tree any bigger than 20 feet, or we don't want a live tree, we want an artificial tree, or whatever. The tree is the last thing we do, basically.
Some of that stuff can't be changed in
Yeah.
advance.
Now, what Pete's talking about, though, the only one really that we have serious time commitment is Community Day. That's the one where we have to book bands, and, and we have to get them on the schedule prior to it, so. We don't do anything at the car show other than advertise it, that's time sensitive. Same thing with the tree lighting. We don't do anything with that except advertise it, that's time sensitive. The tree is whatever you want to do with the tree, or
Dan?
not.
Historically, the board has not micromanaged the committee. We have not picked what bands we want. We give them a dollar figure, they pick the bands. We're giving them a dollar figure, they go out and they solicit what bands that they can get for the amount of money that they've got, period. We don't micromanage that, so that we don't have to do any of that stuff tonight. We just have to okay the 12-5, period. And if we want to discuss each of them as they come, then I think that's appropriate to just finalize and just say, yeah, okay, we understand, boom, done.
The only other thing I'd like to try to accomplish is to include different types of advertising. I think we can get bigger
Sure.
crowds, and maybe even pinhole them even more.
Do you want bigger crowds?
Just because we give a press release to the mining journal,
Yeah.
you know,
There's a question in some of these, do you want bigger crowds? Do you want a bigger crowd of community day, or do you want to have that be more intimate township residents? Now, we've not told people not to
Yeah,
come.
Yeah, we haven't put any parameters on it.
No, we haven't put any parameters on it, and far and away, the majority of the folks that come to it are township residents and their families. You know, the wide majority. We had a couple of years where there were more, because they come with the ball teams, you know, that are coming to compete in the tournament. So, but for the most part, the folks that stay around, you know, till the end are township residents. They bring their lawn chairs and listen to the music and, you know, get something to eat, have a couple of beers, and enjoy the evening, especially if it's a nice one. But, you know, I mean, those are details that can be easily worked out. And like I said, we can easily come to the board meeting prior to each of these events, or two board meetings prior to the events, and say, look, here's where we're at. What are you concerned about? Anything?
Okay, so maybe a month ahead of time?
Sure.
How does that sound?
That'd be fine.
Something comes up in the meantime. Randy,
I don't want to beat it to death anymore.
you want
but-
to call a
Can I call a question?
No, I get my time.
He had his hand up.
The only thing tonight I've just heard about, just listening, is we've had concerns about the bones, or the inflatables, and the tree. That's it.
Mhm.
That's the only thing I've heard about. Treasurer Johnson was concerned about some of the advertising and such, but I don't think that's really our role to get involved in. But, so those are just two things, and I don't know unless the manager has other things, but those are the two major concerns that I've, from last year. So I think we, you know, this is a public meeting, and I think Randy will go back to the committee and tell them. The board had concerns about the inflatables.
Don't call them that.
And,
Or Bones House, I guess.
well, the inflatables
Yeah.
and the Christmas tree. That was our major problem last year, and how can we do better?
Yeah, bigger is not always better.
So, so maybe that's something, yeah, so maybe that's something, because I haven't heard any other problems, any other concerns, other than those two. Those are the two major ones that I think we can address and figure out, so.
Okay, Pete?
I don't want you to get me wrong, I do worry about the kids, more so than you might think.
Yeah, we
I
all
said, you know, they're not gonna get hurt, you know, but I do worry about that. John might think I don't worry about it, but I do. I worry very much, and I try to be available, I try to be on the end of when the kids are coming down, so, you know, it's not that I don't think about that, you know. We have events at our family thing, and I worry about them. If they get carried away, I'll say something too, so, you know, but I don't want people to think I don't worry about the kids when we have these things, so, 'cause I do.
Okay, did we beat it enough?
No, it's my turn. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's my turn.
You got a button, you can push your button to get my
Oh.
attention too.
Yeah, she's
Where's
pushing
the
our buttons,
button?
all right.
When Linda's done, I'm calling for the question.
Oh, you absolutely can. And I know this was already brought up, Randy, and if you can bring this back to the events committee, if we're marketing to people who are 40, 30, 40, 20-year-olds, radio advertising is probably not the place to advertise. And so please expand that advertising. Give us some ideas about what we can do. There was a comment that we have a Facebook page and that we're not utilizing it. And we said that's not our job, so maybe they can bring us some marketing ideas back to get to the people we want to attend. The other thing is, I'm not real sure what digital posts are, and they cost $80 each.
Well, that's for the whole series.
Do you guys know?
Yeah, the digital posts are what go up on the website, on their websites, on Great Lakes Radio and on Sunny 101.9. They go up on theirs, and if you go to each of their websites, they've got, you know, for instance, the car show, they've got pictures of all of the cars that were there and that were registered. And those go on that on the web. I think they send the links to Andra to put on the website, you know, as a link basically to go back and see it.
Well, anyways, I think there's better advertising.
Well, there is.
And the
sure.
other thing is, I personally have a concern about the cost of the advertising. The radio station advertising is high.
Yeah,
And-
we've had discussion at the committee level about do we need to cover all of those stations? And that's basically, I think it's like 13 stations that it goes on, that hits different segments of the population in terms of the type of
Throughout the
music
Upper
that are played.
Peninsula.
Well, in our region
Yeah.
here,
Mhm.
basically.
So those are my concerns.
Yeah,
And I
I got it.
support doing the things for the kids, and I support the concern about safety, and I do think that we don't have enough volunteers, and if you don't get volunteers, you gotta pay people if you want your event to happen. That's the bottom line.
And we've already committed that we're gonna financially support these events, so. that-
Up to 12.5.
Maybe-
Now you can call the question.
Maybe $500 of it comes out and we have to pay somebody to do it.
Yep.
I'm calling the question finally.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
That was painful.
Painful, but good discussion.
Never had any problems with the events committee until you got assigned.
Thanks, Randy, for coming and sharing.
On the recreation committee. I'm not on the events committee.
Consider letter of support
No,
for
they
the
don't.
City of Marquette Tourist Park Grant.
That's you.
That's me. Well, you've got the letter. I also included the email that came asking for the letter. I've just basically changed one or two or three words. No, I'm not trying to open a link. So, I don't see a problem with it. Randy?
I'll move to authorize a supervisor to draft a letter of support on behalf of the township for the City of Marquette Tourist Park Grant.
Support.
The only comment I'd make is, I'm kind of unhappy that they removed the ball field there at Tourist Park, but I can understand it. There used to be a nice fast pitch field there, and it's gone. But they used space for Frisbee and other things, but it was kind of, growing up, that's where I like to watch softball there. It's kind of a shame it's gone, but
John, is that where the 906 is now?
I'm okay with it because that's a mountain bike park now.
That's what I wonder, I was trying to visualize where the ballpark
No,
would
it's
be.
different, eh?
that's where that green space was.
Okay,
Yep,
yeah.
it is where it is.
And people do other stuff there, they put
Yeah.
tents up and,
Well, they got Frisbee, they got the Guts Frisbee, and then like John says, they got bikes there, a pump track there, and then I think they got a Frisbee golf course there. So they've repurposed it.
yeah, multi-purpose, okay. Anything else on the support letter? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Wow, that took all of 2 minutes. Okay, Planning Commission, Linda, what are they working on?
Okay, so the Planning Commission met on Wednesday, March 9th. We reviewed a special use permit for a public hearing for the proposed solar energy system on the rooftop of the Vanderboom School, and that was approved. We also reviewed under a special use permit, a proposed short-term rental unit on property located at 828 County Road 550, and that was not approved. And that was probably it. There were some comments for some people in the audience about the blasting at the gravel pits, and I'm sure Jason's probably looking into that, but.
Any questions for Linda?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Roads Committee,
We have a meeting coming up. I asked the members to come up with some ideas for the, for the next 3 to 5 years. Make a list of the items that we'd like to get into. I'd like to go over my thoughts are to go over the ordinances that we have, and are we up to date on it, or we're not up to date, and everything from lighting to intersections to all the other things, so. We have one request for a light on Warner Street. That hasn't been decided yet because of, it's a block up from Ontario. It's a mid-block. It's very busy and the guy's nervous about it, and there's a pole across the street. So I think Eric was looking into that, and we haven't got any feedback yet, so.
so remember, you had $1,500 in the lighting budget, and then we gave you another $1,500 from the fund balance from the year before that we didn't spend.
But we want to make sure when you spend something, for the right reasons.
Right,
and
I just
stuff
wanna
like
make
that,
sure
because
you remember
The whole,
that.
whole Trowich Park is hills and valleys. You know, in our ordinance, that's why I want to start the ordinance, do we have that covered? Going down Ontario, before you break the hill there, there should be a light on top of that because it's dark, you know, and stuff like that. So we want to review that and make a list of it and sit down with John and stuff like that to go over it, so.
Okay,
See what we can do this year, next year, and the following year, so.
okay. Any questions for Pete?
Anything on commerce, Pete?
Commerce, nothing, that's not our problem.
I know it is, but you've heard
I
anything?
talked to
from
Jim about that, and I said, you gotta do something, either widen that road out, because it's, you put a bike path in there or something like that, because it's so darn narrow, and people are on their phones, and I see one close, you know, almost an accident. A person was on their phone, another person was walking on the right-hand side, which that makes me nervous, you know, because when they put that in, they didn't widen it out enough.
What are you talking
And also, there's 6 cracks in it.
Oh, about
yeah.
like just lighting in general here.
everything?
Yeah, and there's 6 different cracks that should be repaired, and I asked Jim, I said, when you gonna fix that? You know,
What answer did you get?
what year? When are you gonna retire?
Okay. Events committee, can we just skip over that one?
Yeah,
Please?
All right, we lost our public, other than Randy, if you wanna say something else for public comment. Okay, sorry? It's up to you if you had any other comments.
Well, there we are.
Yeah,
Just one comment. The infrastructure for lighting out here is already in the ground.
just need the poles.
Poles and connections, it was built, and this was built out here, over the southern. Utilities installed.
but that's up to the road commission to put them in.
I'm not sure, I don't recall that, I wasn't here when that was done, but although in the record, I found that
Okay,
it was done.
all right, because that is a dangerous stretch, so maybe we have to look at that then.
They're all, I was told, all they need is bases and poles.
That's good to know. Thanks.
400 times 6.
Okay, announcements?
Who's counting?
Anything to share? Okay, managers report.
Well, thank you all for the spirited discussion tonight. I think that's enough regarding that for now. You've given me a little bit more direction that I think was necessary to move forward in a clear direction. Ultimately, the biggest thing is establishing very clearly that the budget is not to exceed 12.5, right? I will do everything in my power to make sure the rest of the things that concern me are properly addressed before the event happens. If part of that means I don't volunteer at where all the kids are going to be, maybe that's the easy solution, right? But I want to make sure that we've at least had the discussion publicly to make sure we're making good decisions for the township. And the events committee knows how I feel about this. I don't need to beat that horse anymore. We'll just come up with as good of a plan as we can for all 3 of the events that the township is helping support financially. In my written report, you'll see that I've informed the Michigan Infrastructure Council that I will not be seeking renewal of my commitment at the end of this year. This is my last year. We had a meeting last week. I did not make it to that meeting. I made it almost to Lansing before the car broke down. And so I had to turn around and go to the nearest repair shop I could find. By the time it was fixed, my meeting was almost over and I was not in Lansing, I was in St. John's. So I missed my my first of 4 final meetings. I'm hoping that the rest of the meetings this year will be less eventful, but trying to spend more time committed to my day job, not a volunteer effort that I agreed to before coming here. Otherwise, well, I've got the Lions Field agreement in there, which we'll be coming back to you at the next meeting on. And then the Backyard Creek project, just want everyone to know that there are some current flow concerns in the design, so we're trying to work through that. There's another meeting tomorrow afternoon I will be involved in Lenny's absence, so hopefully there'll be some progress on that from Eagle as the permitting agent, what they're willing to allow us to build, knowing that Wright Street still is a constraint on the project and it's not in the township. So the joys of getting involved in things that really aren't our responsibility, but because it's the only way to get grant money, you kind of jump in head first. We'll see where it goes. We'll keep you informed.
Any questions for the manager? Ernie?
The Wright Street culvert, is that our responsibility, John, or is
No.
that?
Nope, that's in the city. It's city street at that point. And I don't think they have any intentions of dealing with that right now, and especially not because of what we have going on. Sure, they'll want to know it, and I think they do know that it is undersized based on current hydraulic or hydrologic data. But when it was built, it was probably built according to how they were supposed to. So it's just, the circumstances have changed. You know, the intensity of rain events is getting stronger and that kind of thing.
Is it causing us any problems because it's undersized?
Definitely not on Backyard Creek, currently. But we're planning on upsizing 4 culverts upstream of there. That gets the water there quicker. So they're trying to analyze this thing to figure out what the best solution is.
What size culvert is there now?
It's an elliptical culvert, 48 by something a little bit more than that, 48 by 56, or I forget the exact dimensions, but it's 48 inches tall by a little bit wider.
Probably the same size I've got on my culvert at my house.
Probably.
That comes right down off the highway.
Yep.
It handles a good deal of water. It really does. So,
Well, then the stuff starts melting.
yeah.
Well, we have consultants handling that for us to make sure that what we do is the best we can. So, just wanted you to be aware that there is a potential issue there that if it doesn't make, if the project we're proposing makes the situation worse, we may not be able to do it. And there are some residents that are looking forward to this project happening, so just want to make that clear.
Any other questions for John? Pete?
I just want to make a comment about John and his comments about safety and stuff like that, and I'm not trying to be nice to you either. But I just, we're lucky that we have somebody that voices an opinion on that and not trying to just go along with the crew, so to speak.
Well, the previous manager always did too.
Well, I know that. Well, I wanted to put a parade down Highway 41 there, and he says, no, we can't do that. But we're lucky that we have people like that, because just to make people second think about different projects that we have, because sometimes when you get rolling, you can get out of hand. And I'm glad that he does voice his opinion, and I'm thankful Randy, when he did it, same thing. So I think we're very lucky to have him.
I thought you weren't going to be nice to him.
Huh?
I thought you weren't going to be nice to him.
Oh, yeah, that's not really being nice to him. You don't know what I'm thinking.
Anything else for John? No? Okay. You want to read our motions?
Okay, this evening, we approve the consent agenda as presented. We approve the regular agenda as amended when we moved 8C to 8A. The third motion was we approved the ALS paramedic intercept agreement with the city of Marquette, and that was approved. We agreed to put the 10-year agreement with the Little League for Lions Field on the next agenda, and that was approved. We agreed to put the Iron Ore Heritage ballot resolution and language on to the August 2022 election, and that was approved by roll call vote. And with sixth motion, we approved the events committee plan and budget for the township sponsored events for 2022, not to exceed 12.5. That was approved. And the seventh motion was to approve the letter of support for the City of Marquette Tourist Park grant written by the supervisor, and that was approved.
Okay, thank you. So we may have a Lake and Lynn Land grant letter from Carol on the next agenda. We'll see if she wants to do that quickly. And then we'll talk about the Lions Field softball, various leagues for right now. I was gonna read this during announcements and I forgot. I can do it for
think
board member comment. I got
we
a
all got
thank you card. Pardon?
Yeah,
We all got them.
we all got that.
Oh, you did? Oh, good. Then I don't need to. I thought it was just for me, for everybody.
No, we got.
Well, that was nice. Good. And I don't have to read it. Thanks. What else? Anything? Randy?
Okay, a few items tonight. The board, even though we don't agree sometimes, we were very respectful in our decisions and in discussion, which I think is important, and this board has done that pretty well over the last 2 years. And I really think that's good. You know, we can disagree but not get personal, which some boards really struggle to do. So I think that's good that we do that. It's good for the public, it's good for the township that we don't make a mockery of ourselves. What else? I heard today the Senate approved daylight savings time permanent. So it's got to go through the House, and if it approves the House, it'll be hopefully signed into law, and we'll never have to change the clock again.
Hallelujah.
So I heard that today.
One way or the other, they need to just leave it at sun time.
That'd be very nice.
My assistant clerk, Lois's replacement, started yesterday, and she'll be introduced to the board at a future meeting. Kim Clark is her name, and I think she's going to do very well. So she's got a good teacher, so she'll be
She's got a very big set of shoes to fill too.
She does, but she's got a good teacher that's leaving her quite a bit of information to fulfill the job, so. Tomorrow I have training for election workers at 1 o'clock in the community room. Every 2 years, election workers have to be retrained. So some of our workers will be there tomorrow. And that'll be primarily for the May election, because the county clerk's gonna do more in June and July for the primary, but she just put a couple sessions for the early election, because there's not too many May elections in the county. And I think that's about it.
Okay. Linda?
Okay, so I just want to remind everyone, there are a lot of potholes, especially in Trowbridge Park, and there's a lot of water running. So please be careful, and don't splash people that are walking. Yeah. The other
Walk
thing.
on the right side of the road.
Yeah, they still splash you. The other thing is, and I don't know who would look into this, but the Planning Commission was wondering about complaints when we were reviewing the requests for rentals, for short-term rentals, if we'd ever gotten any complaints, and I looked and it says complaints from Central Dispatch, 83 in January and 63 in February on the patrol report. What are those? How do we know what kind of complaints those
Is
are?
that on one resident? One
that's
address?
No, it doesn't say what it is.
It's township-wide, all complaints.
For
the
Marquette Township, right?
Correct.
But they were looking to know if people were complaining about people in rentals or short-term rentals. And so I said, this is here, and we don't know what those complaints are.
I'll include that with my call to the sheriff.
Were you at, yeah, so they
lot.
can define that.
But a lot of that is not public knowledge too, you gotta remember.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah, some of it's,
Yeah, but they can
be general.
desensitize that information to give you generic.
I don't know if they've got time to,
Well, they got
Central's
time to
pretty good.
to count them and say there were 83 of them. We'll see. Lynn will ask. Yeah, so that was, all. Thank you.
Ernie?
I got two things. At the Business Association today, there's one comment that I was reading the minutes, because I missed it last time. If you want a donation from them, you have to request it. So,
I never did before.
well, that's what's in the minutes now. You have to request it to get it. So, how much, I have no idea. He didn't say that. Just-
This is always 500. Well, makes no sense it says 850 on there, unless it's changed.
I don't know what dollar amount, because it didn't say. And the other thing is that came up, I was real surprised. Lake Superior Partnership, the director there, she got a new job downstate, so she's actually done.
No, she's there till the 14th.
Okay, well, according to today, that she was on her way out real quick in that.
Yeah,
so.
one of the press releases, the other one said she's there through, there's a name, assistant director, whatever, is filling in for her while she's back and forth.
They didn't have that information then. It was a new position downstate that she's getting, something to do with development of some type, I don't know what it's called.
Deputy Director of Rural Development for the state of Michigan.
It's a biggie.
I'd be going to.
Hopefully that'll help us up in the UP.
Let's hope we're still in good standing with her.
Yeah.
Well, we just gave her $300 and some dollars, maybe she's happy. What else? Anything? Good, one more motion?
I'll move.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 8:31, we are adjourned. Next meeting